When you look at me, what do you see? Do you see a white male that's privileged, probably grew up with everything handed to him, no troubles whatsoever? You see a kid, what does he know? 22-year-old kid going on YouTube to make a video to make himself feel better or to have the hope of getting fame or attention. These are the things that people think on first sight. People are, I hesitate to say programmed, but programmed to think these things, to put someone in a box and to see them as they are stereotypically seen to be. This is a collectivistic sort of thought process, but it's not beneficial to you or the other person. What I instead propose is a individualistic look at each person. And that's scary. It's scary because if you want to look at every single person as an individual, that takes trust, that takes strength to be able to trust them and understand them, to hear about them, to learn about them, to be patient with them. These are a lot of things that aren't really seen as the gold standard of how we should live our lives. Our lives are so fast paced now. They say the internet day is 7 hours long, and we have the internet in our pockets at all times. I'm recording this on a phone, and I'm sure by the time I'm done with this video, there'll be some new headline or some crazy new thing that happened that should grab everyone's attention. I am making this video to kind of state my case. Hopefully change some people's minds about how you look at someone, but I'm just going to start talking. So, I was born into this world with a broken family. The type of situation where, you know, my biological father showed up drunk at my birth. So that was my little introduction to the world, nice little welcoming party, I guess you could say. And by the time I was entering high school, I'd moved 13 times. I ended up looking it up later, or a little while ago. The average person in America moves 11 times in their whole lifetime. I never really realized at the time that this could be a traumatic thing or something that other people didn't go through. For me, it was normal. And that's a common recurring theme that you'll find with looking at someone as an individual, is that their normal is not the same as your normal. To truly understand someone, you have to not hold any jealousy over them, and you don't hold any pity over them. If you pity someone, or you're jealous or envious of what they might have or who they are or what they look like, then you totally close off any possibility of having a conversation with them and understanding them. The importance of understanding someone is that you get to be a little, you get to hear and take in and soak up what they have lived. Everyone's experience in life is different and unique, and you can always get something from it. So by the time I was in high school, I had moved around a lot. I'd even experienced discrimination You know, why you think like white male, like discrimination? What do you feel discriminated against? I grew up in a very Mexican, Latino, whatever you the politically correct term for it is. I don't care. And I was kind of shunned for being white. I was like one of 4 or 5 white kids at my school, and I mean that's a very different perspective than the average white male that looks like me. Is that you know it's I didn't even have a friend come over to hang out until I was fifth grade. In the fifth grade, so what would that be like? I don't know. That's 11, 12 years old, something like that. And again, this was all normal. And through high school, I learned some things about life and death. 3 people that I knew, one of them, no, one of them was a close friend. One of them was more of an acquaintance, but becoming a friend. And the other one was someone that I would consider a friend that I didn't know about their situation underneath their skin or in their head. One was murdered by her mother, shot in the back of the head. For those 3 days that she was gone from school, everyone just thought that she was sick. They didn't think anything of it. That was the first experience that I had going to closed casket funeral, of seeing how death can affect people for losing such young life, how it affects older people seeing that, how it affects their peers. And for me, I was just shocked the whole time. I just didn't know what to make of it, I guess you could say. It was just what was happening. It wasn't like a hurtful, like I didn't feel any pain. It was just like a, well, this is what it is. For the second person, this was senior year of high school. It was a buddy of mine in our cross country running team, and he was just leaving the school and he got T-boned by another person leaving whenever he was turning at the intersection. It was ruled no fault on both sides, so no one went to jail, but one person walked away without so much as a bruise. Another person didn't live to see the end of the day. And that was such a different experience for me because this was a closer friend. I mean, if you've been on a sports team before or in a club or something, whenever you go through trials and errors and pains and struggles with someone in terms of running, it's not a very enjoyable thing. Whenever you run with someone, you tend to bond with them a little bit more. But this was strange. I mean, literally when it happened, I was no more than 50 feet away. And it's strange. I didn't see it happen. I didn't see the accident happen. I didn't even hear it happen. I was in my girlfriend at the time's car, and we were just listening to music and listening to it a little bit louder with the windows up and stuff, so you didn't hear it, which is even more eerie to think about, but in its own separate way. But I remember when we were just instantly leaving, we were going to her house, I think, and we were at that intersection right there, and no more than at this point like 20 feet away from us was the car, completely wrecked, completely like just caved in. The old driver's side was just crushed in, and all I remember seeing, I'm not going to get graphic with this, is just blood and oil obviously dripping from the car, and the other thing from obviously my friend. And it was strange in that moment because I remember being or thinking who is that? And like I didn't. I was like, who is that? I don't. What happened? And even though I knew who it was, I knew it was my friend. I knew it was their car. I even like the minute before it happened, whenever they were leaving the parking lot, I was like, oh, there's Ryan and Corey. I remember saying that, and then in my head, I was like, I don't know this person. I kind of pointed to like a shock, defensive mental mechanism or something, but I was totally just like, I didn't know how to handle that. And I remember a week later, after the whole candlelight vigil ceremonies and everything, I remember I was the little TV host of our school's weekly show, just like news shows for everything. Um, I remember getting up there by myself and talking about this. And it's so. I don't even want to say strange because it's not strange, it makes sense, but just like. It's so. You feel like you're in the third person looking at yourself. Because whenever you're in such a different situation, when you're talking about your friend's death, 2,000 people, and whenever they don't know that you had a bond with that person, and you're talking about them as if it was someone at the school, just another person. But of course, it's like obviously with a sadder tone to it. So, anyways, that taught me about how anything can happen any day, anytime. No one is safe. This world is not safe. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't live your life in fear all the time. Just because you can die at any moment doesn't mean that you should be afraid of dying at any moment. The third person was after high school. About a month or two after high school, a girl that I used to go to a club that I was running in high school, she used to like hang out at lunch and stuff, and we would go and recycle bottles and cans from all the different classrooms at the school, and we would volunteer at other events and stuff. I was running a volunteering club, so we had a lot of events and stuff together. Really just quiet and nice girl. You'd never suspect that she would die from a drug overdose. She was with her boyfriend, I think. I don't know, the family kept it very hush-hush because they were embarrassed that their daughter died from a drug overdose. But from what I was able to get from friends and stuff is that it was her and her boyfriend hanging out, and she took too much. And that taught me that you can die at the hands of even people that care about you. The first thing with the girl who was murdered by her mother, that sorry, I meant to say, yeah, for the first girl, you can die at the hands of someone who loves you or loves you, and for the second person, you can die at any time for no reason, no fault. And then I learned that you can die at your own hands from consciously doing something that you think won't have any consequences, that turns out has grave consequences. It was after all of this, I mean, life was generally fine. I was able to get into university, and it was interesting. I mean, I always had like a lot of anxiety. I thought it was ADHD at the time, and so did my first psychiatrist, who ended up prescribing me Adderall. And that was the beginning of a completely different struggle I went through of what was first just being prescribed a medication to what ended up being a debilitating, a completely life handicapping drug addiction. And what I learned from all of that is that it's so easy to take a pill, to just swallow something and think that you're in control by doing that simple action of taking the pill. But then in reality, you're just abdicating all responsibility and relinquishing control of yourself to be someone that you're not, but you think they're better. And I remember it was really bad at one point where I was trying to keep up with school and work and some other things. And I just remember being up for 3 days, taking pill after pill. And I just remember at the end of it, I was hallucinating. I remember I was sitting inside my car, parked right outside in front of my house. I was looking at my front door at the screen, and I remember seeing the bush right outside the door dancing. And I remember seeing like a shadowy, like 6'5" tall figure staring back at me that was inside the house, like looking back at me. I was freaked out. But, anyways, that's just a side note. But from this, I became dependent on something to make me feel like enough. To feel like I could love myself. And that's the thing with drugs, is that they can quite literally make you know the feeling of self-love. But that's so dangerous, because if it's not a natural, genuine love for yourself, if it's artificial, if it's this fake adrenaline that pumps this dopamine in your head to make you think that you're something that you're not, and to make you act like something that you're not yet, or maybe just not at all, then it becomes more than a crutch. It becomes like your new identity. So taking these uppers and stuff, they got me into this cycle of just taking it over and over again. It was getting upwards of like 120, 150 milligrams a day. Which, if you know about Adderall, that's a dangerous amount. And after that, I remember, or not after that, but I remember trying to fix the symptoms of the Adderall crash with my doctor, who was like basically Dr. Feelgood. I basically just had to ask him for his Xanax prescription, and he wrote it. Nothing more than that. It was just a simple ask and you shall receive sort of thing. And Xanax was a completely different beast. As you know, it's completely almost opposite to Adderall. Adderall's an upper and Xanax is a downer. And I remember just wanting to get away. That's what drugs and alcohol and anything can do, is it just makes you get away at some points. And sometimes you are so ashamed of who you are, or you are so afraid of the unknown, of being judged, of losing control, of taking the first step towards sobriety, that you stay on this train because it's the devil that you know. You don't know anything else. And if you are to go on the path towards sobriety, you quite literally have to kill off the archetype that enveloped your previous self when on drugs. Because that's, once you're like 2-3 years into that, of every day doing that, you don't even know who you are anymore. I mean, you remember your childhood and stuff, you're like, oh, those are the good times when I didn't have to take this stuff. But it's like, you don't remember feeling everything. I mean, it's not fun being sober. You feel emotions that suck, but you also have a sense of self-love. You forget about that. You don't remember that part. And all this time you're losing friends, especially like you gain friends and stuff in the beginning because like your new exciting sort of stuff, you can socialize better, you don't get anxiety or whatever it is, all drugs are kind of different, but it's there's this word for it. Kind of goes along with the seven deadly sins, specifically the word sloth. But the word I'm thinking of is acedia, Acedia. And acedia is this temptation to not care about not caring. So, this is like the worst point of a drug addiction. Whenever you don't care about not caring, that's whenever you get depressed, and that's whenever you lose your sense of purpose and your identity, and that's whenever suicide is a legitimate option on the table. I tried to commit suicide like not like dozens of times, but three times, and then like one of those was like an attention seeking thing. The other two were like serious things. But it got to such a point that I was literally homeless, and then when I couldn't get drugs anymore, I just remember just shaking from Xanax withdrawals for hours on end. And I would try to take like sleeping pills, but then I would take too much, and I started like having dysphoria. If you take too many sleeping pills, you get dysphoria, which is like a complete hatred of life. And this is part of the thing that I think is wrong. This is what's happening in society, is that a lot of people are going through these types of things. I'm not saying my life is exactly like other people. I'm not saying that my life is the worst. This isn't like a sob story or anything. But there is a lot of similarities that we can see in society today. When you look at the news of depression rates skyrocketing, suicide rates skyrocketing, drug use. Well, I think drug use is actually going down in terms of overdoses, or it's kind of like plateaued, but it's still not like low or anything. 1 in 4 women are on antidepressants. There's a lot of bad in this world, and I think that a lot of this is because we're not focusing, or we don't even know to be focusing on our sense of purpose and identity to get our lives back on track. The thing that helped me get through these things, you can think of it as difficult or as easy as you want to, but just as me telling my story, the thing that helped me get out of this was finding my sense of purpose and identity. See, when a kid grows up without one of their parents, it's hard to... Well, first of all, it's you have more time to yourself. You have more time to experiment with things that could be bad, and you have no one, or you don't have as many, one less person to tell you, hey, what you're doing is stupid, don't do that. But a lot of kids grow up without a father in today's society, or they grow up in one-parent households, or they grow up in a society that tells them, like, hey, if you open up your Instagram app, it's like, look at all these millionaires and stuff, and look at all these people with like all they could ever want, but it doesn't tell you how to get there. And all society tells you to do is go get a degree, go work for a company, go get a stable job and stuff. What they don't tell you is that for every job that you get, someone is the pimp and someone is being pimped out. And what you have to decide is how you're going to approach that dichotomy, that relationship. I guess dichotomy would work too, as a word to use. But through these tests, I guess you can call them, that I was going through, I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about fear. I learned a lot about identity and purpose. You gotta ask yourself, what is your purpose? Who are you? And not in a cliche, like cheesy sort of like, who are you? Like, oh, I'm a person, blah blah blah, or like I'm a spiritual person or something. No, but like really, what defines you as a person? And I guess being spiritual, I guess, is part of that. That's a little bit vague. And having a purpose is like every day you can wake up and be like, okay, this is the overall theme of what I am trying to do. And it can obviously change over time. You don't have one set purpose in your whole life. But it has to be something hard, and it has to be something purposeful that will give you satisfaction in the end. It's almost like creating this transcendence, this transcendent goal that you're trying to attain, and it's transcendent. It's like above worldly things, but it's something that you'll never be able to reach, and consequently be ungrateful for or not be appreciative of. It's always going to be something that's above, something to chase. And I think as humans, we always need a chase. It's kind of like in the Declaration of Independence, your pursuit of happiness. And within that, you should always have the right to have that pursuit of happiness. However, just because people technically still do have the right to this pursuit of happiness doesn't mean that people are being shown how and what to pursue. So, I don't have any degrees to show that I'm right. Again, I'm just a 22-year-old white male. What do I know? But hopefully, with me sharing just a little bit of the things that I've been through, you can understand that everyone is an individual and everyone has something new to share. You should never brush off anyone because you think you already know them. Everyone has a reason for why they are the way they are, and you will never truly understand how it is to be the way they are unless you lived every single day in their shoes. Every single person, it makes sense why they are the way they are if you were to look at their life and understand. Do not pity them and do not feel jealous for them. The best thing you can do is understand them. Do not pity the homeless man, understand him. Do not be jealous of the celebrity, understand him, and learn from their experiences. There's more I want to talk about, but I'll save it for another video. But hopefully you guys got something out of that. Thanks for watching.